So this is take two. I tried to film this the other day and then there was work going on in the building beside me and it was just really loud drilling and I was like, I cannot film. If I'll leave it, I'll do it the next day, and then I conveniently forgot. So this is take two. About 3 days later. Is it 3 days? It's been 3 days. My gosh, I've been procrastinating. What have I been doing for 3 days? So another month is over and it is officially November. It is November 7th today. Wow, I'm a little bit late at filming my wrap up. November to me is a pretty good month. My birthday is at the end. Sagittarius squad, where are you at? Where are you at? I love November. I feel like that's about the only good thing about it is my birthday. There's Guy Fawkes night, bonfire night on the 5th, then we have Remembrance Day on the 11th, and then my birthday at the end. So that's about it. That's the only thing it's good for.
I feel like I love October and I love November, and it's a happy month. It's a happy 3 months for me because I love October because that's when autumn starts and all the leaves turn orange and fall and they're all crunchy, and then we have Halloween and then it's bonfire night, and then of course next month is Christmas! Oh, to be perfectly honest, I can't help myself this year. It's just going to be completely different than any Christmas that we've ever had. There'll be like no Christmas nights out. I haven't even been in a pub in months. It has been so long. I can't make it apart from having a little few drinks on Halloween. I barely have been drinking.
Why am I talking about myself? Get back on track, talk about books. So October started off not too bad, to be perfectly honest. I just got interrupted again. The universe does not want me to make this video. So I started off October pretty well. That I started a book, I finished it within like, I don't think I read it in a day. I didn't read it in a day, but I read it in like 2 days, which to me is pretty good. I very rarely read a book a day. It has to be relatively short, maybe only like 200 to 300 pages. It has to have like a good pace. I have to just dedicate the whole day to it and do like nothing else for me to actually be able to finish it. So I feel like depending on the book I can read it in like 2 days, and that to me is a pretty good reading day. If I read a book every 2 days for like a month, that's 15 books. I haven't read 15 books this month though, that's not what happened. So the first book that I read, and honestly like the beginning of October feels like so long ago, I don't even know if I remember these books. But the very first book that I kicked off October with was The Alibi Girl. I honestly, I don't even remember this book. Oh no, I do. I was tempted to do a review on it just to talk about it, but I might try and sum it up quickly here. I had a few issues with the book. So I will read the back to you and then I'll just tell you my thoughts, my feelings, and sort of what it was about. Joanne Haynes has a secret. That is not her real name. And there's more. Her flat isn't hers. Her cats aren't hers. Even her hair isn't really hers. Nor is she any of the other women she pretends to be. Not the best-selling romance novelist who gets her morning snack from the donut van on the seafront, nor the pregnant woman in the dental surgery, nor the chemo patient in the supermarket for whom the cashier feels ever so sorry. They're all just alibis. In fact, the only thing that's real about Joanne is that nobody can find out who she really is. But someone has got too close. It looks like her alibis have begun to run out. In the beginning, I was like, oh my god, who is this girl? My first thought was that she was some sort of like, she'd done something as a child, like something bad, and she'd maybe like served some time in prison, and then when she was out they gave her a new identity, because you know how they do that sometimes with people, with like certain prisoners, like if they do, say they like do something bad as a child, like maybe kill somebody, or they then get released from prison, they're given new identities and they're relocated elsewhere. That is generally what I thought this character was. I thought she'd done something horrendous as a child, she was given a new identity, and that was it. That wasn't it. Basically, I mean, I don't know if I really want to spoil the book for you, but chances are you probably won't read it because it was crap. That's a lie. Okay, the book was good and I was kind of gripped throughout because I was really curious about where it was going, what the story was, like who is this girl? I didn't mind the main character. I hate liars. There's a difference between lying if you have to and just being a compulsive liar. And listen, one of my childhood friends was a compulsive liar and it was the worst thing ever because I felt like she was one of my best friends and I just couldn't trust her. She would come away with these stupid tales and it was like I just never ever, it got to the point where I just never believed a word she said. She would say anything and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it used to drive me insane, and she would lie about some stupid stuff. So I detest liars. I hate compulsive liars. I know maybe some people just can't help it, that's just their nature, but I hate it. So I hated the fact that she lied everywhere she went. But if it was supposed to like protect her safety, that's fair enough. I can understand people that are in some sort of witness protection program that have to keep their identity secret, therefore they have to lie. That's different. But this girl, she had her made up story, which was what the people, the government, the police, the program had given to her, which was fine. It was just like a simple story. But she obviously didn't really want to use that story. She told so many lies, and the fact that she was like, times she was pretending to be pregnant, she pretended that she was going through chemotherapy because she had cancer, and it was like, I lost it. I lost it with that girl. It made me so mad. I was like, oh my god, what the fuck? Throughout the novel, you are given like chapters from her past, so you are quite quickly learning about her past and learning like her real name, which in a way I didn't really like that. I didn't actually like the fact that the chapters were sort of like the past and the present were like mushed together. I didn't really like that. I think I would have preferred it if we got her story up until a certain point, then we get to tell the truth of who she is, her family, because I wouldn't have minded that. I quite like the chapters that were the past. I just wish I wasn't told them quite so soon, because then I felt like I knew what was going down, why she had to go into this program. And to be perfectly honest, I thought it was a bit dumb. Her dad was killed at the end of the day. Do you think you're gonna read this book? No, you're not. So let me just tell you what happened. Her dad was he a gambler? I think he was a gambler, but he was in too deep with some dodgy folk. And our main character, I've already forgotten what her real name is. Our main character had such a close relationship with her cousin, Foy. Was her name Foy? Or Faye. She had a close relationship with her cousin and a super close relationship with her auntie. She'd spend a lot of time there. Her auntie was her dad's sister. They were really close, but then stuff happened and she ended up that she never saw her family again. I genuinely thought that they were all dead. That's what I thought. I thought all these characters were all dead. This family that took her and her father in and became so important to her, so close to her. She was so close to her cousin. She was like her sister. I thought they were all dead. That's generally what I thought had happened. I thought everybody was dead, which I think would have made for a much more interesting story, to be perfectly honest. But as it turned out, that it was just that her dad was in too deep with these people, and in the end they came after him. Oh no, he spoke out against them to the police in court. The whole corporation got in trouble and arrested and sent down, and so friends of the dodgy people, or like accomplices, or heavies or whatever, are gonna be going after our main character and her dad. So they end up getting put into like a program to keep them safe. But then it doesn't work because they find them and they kill her dad. Then she gets them put into another program and she's shipped around a lot. That's how we end up where we are today, which was fine. But then the whole premise of the story is that she's convinced that somebody's after her, and she's right. Somebody is watching her, and I actually figured out quite quickly who it was. I realised who it was in her life that was spying on her, and they came after her, and then shit goes down and they think she's dead, because then chapters are told from another character's perspective, and it was a mess. It wasn't a mess, but I'm explaining it and it's a mess. And I thought it was so dumb, because I thought, I'm not being funny though, right? Her dad's dead, therefore it's done. They killed him. That's done. Why would you then go after his daughter, who was a child at the time, and it's got nothing to do with it? The guy who spoke out against you and your little group, your little dodgy dealings, is now dead. End of story. That's it. Would they go after his daughter? Would they really, when she's in like a program, would you really have nothing else to do but try and hunt down this girl and kill her? And for what? Her dad's already dead. So then by the ending, it was all happily ever after. Everything was great in the end. We all lived happily ever after. Or did we? Was basically how it ended. And to be perfectly honest, I like to think that our main character died of hypothermia when she was out in the snow, when she was hiding from people who she thought was after her. That's what I think happened, but chances are probably not. I think it did end that kind of way, didn't it? It was like saying about how everything's done, and she's saying like, you know, is it real? Is it not real? Because she lied so much she didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. To be perfectly honest, I like to think that she died. Why am I a psychopath? What the hell? It was the fact that she always dreamed of living in a castle, right? This was like her and her cousin. They used to love playing pretend games as kids. And one of their things was that they were princesses. They had this tree house that they loved playing in. And in the end, it turned out that her cousin and her cousin's two brothers all lived in a castle in France. Their parents died. They left them loads of money. And the three siblings decided to buy a castle in France. And they all lived together with their respective families. And now our main character, I really can't remember her real name, ends up going to live with them. And that was the end. And then in the end, she basically kind of says like, and is it real? I'm not sure. And I was like, what? The chances of that being real are that it's not. It's the life that she would always wanted, to live in a castle with her cousin. I can hear my dad in his motorbike. What are you? So I feel like, realistically speaking, chances are she died of hypothermia when she was out in the snow, hiding out from people she thought was after her. The end. I give this 3 out of 5. It was okay. I feel like it was another case of not what I was expecting. I read the back of the book, I was so excited by it, and then it wasn't at all what I was expecting. So 3 out of 5, it could have been better, but it wasn't the worst. Next up, we have a 5-star read, which is honestly very rare for me. Like, the only books that I ever end up giving 5 stars are books that I've read before. So for example, like The Hunger Games. Books that I've read before and loved them and then read them again. Or books that I've loved the movies that are just a part of my childhood. If I read them again, I'm gonna love them. I'm gonna give them 5 stars. But to read a book for the first time, love it so much, and not find any faults in it, to be able to give it 5 stars is so rare for me. You don't know how amazing I felt reading this book. It is called The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil, and oh my god, this book, I loved it. I probably should give a trigger warning for anybody that wants to read this book. A certain character in the book he's a taxidermist, and he has a fascination with like dead things. He does harm a lot of living creatures, and I did read a few reviews that people had to DNF this book because they just couldn't deal with the animal cruelty in it. I feel like it wasn't that much. It happened quite a bit. It happened more than I would liked. But I feel like at the same time, I don't think I would ever DNF a book just for something like that, because at the end of the day, it's not real. There are no animals being harmed. It's fictional. Yes, it's not very nice to read about, especially if it's in kind of detail. And it was a little bit detailed. Maybe that's what made people kind of squeamish. But you can kind of just skip ahead. You can skip through it. It's not that important. It establishes the character for sure. I can see why people didn't really like to read about it, because sometimes it's a bit detailed, a little bit graphic, but you could definitely skip over it. So just a fair warning about that. But it's not in an awful lot, and it's only really in the chapters told from the perspective of Silas. All the other chapters, oh, that's a lie. There was a couple when that little boy in his Albie's chapters, there was like a dead dog, but there was a lot of like animal deaths, animal cruelty in this, but it's easily overlooked, I guess. You could just kind of skip ahead if you see it. You know when it's coming. You do. I'll read the back of the book to you to let you know a little bit of what this book's about, and then I shall tell you how I loved it so much. London, 1850. On a crowded street, the doll maker Iris Whittle meets the artist Louis Frost. Louis is a pre-Raphaelite painter who yearns to have his work displayed in the Royal Academy, and he is desperate for Iris to be his model. Iris agrees on the condition that he teaches her to paint. Dreaming of freedom, Iris throws herself into this new life of art and love, unaware that she has caught the eye of a second man. Silas Reed is a curiosity collector, enchanted by the strange and beautiful. After seeing Iris at the site of the great exhibition, he finds he cannot forget her. As Iris's world expands, Silas's obsession grows. It is only a matter of time before they meet again. So I think one of the things with this book was that I developed a crush on one of the characters, which is very rare for me. I know everybody develops crushes all the time on book characters, but I don't. I think it's different if I'm reading a book where I've seen the movie, so I have like the actor in my head. So then I kind of fall in love with them a little bit. If I'm thinking of the actor, I'm visualizing them. But when I'm just given a character on paper and I'm just kind of like reading about them, I tend not to really form crushes. I can form attachments, but not really a proper crush on them. But with this one, I developed a crush on Louis Frost. I loved him. Is it Louis or Lewis? Because I never know. L-O-U-I-S. I've always said that as Louis, but is that Lewis? Is that a spelling of Lewis? I don't know. Maybe it's not Louis. Oh god. I'm gonna Google this.
See if it's Louis after all this time, and I've been calling him Louis. Yeah, okay, so over in France, Louis is pronounced Louis. The American way, Louis. Oh, okay. So I think it can be both.
Am I really gonna watch a video on this?
Louis.
Okay, so that answers that question. His name is Louis. Thank God for that. But I guess you could probably call it Lewis if you wanted to, but I don't. I developed a crush on him quite quickly. And to be honest, I think part of the reason is because I love love Victorian novels. I love books set in a Victorian era more so than I do the 21st century. What is that, the 1800s? I really enjoy those kind of novels more so than I do like books from the 21st century. So that probably helped. This was a prime example of a love interest, a romance that I enjoy, where the two characters, you can tell that they like each other, they're taking their time, it's not just sudden in your face. And that's another reason why I think I'm not as into romance when it's all set in this time period, because everything's just so fast and I can never deal with it. I think it takes me time to get to adjust to both characters, to get to know them, to like them, for them to then go into a relationship, for me to be rooting for them. Whereas like with this, the two characters were established, you could just tell that they had like crushes on each other and there was like feelings there, and I loved the way they were with each other. I loved them both. Then when things were sort of hinted at and romance started to flourish, I was rooting for it. So I've realised that I don't hate romance. I always thought I just hated romance and that I was some sort of cold-hearted bitch. But actually, I just love it when my characters are well established. I feel like the love and the connection is genuine and real and it's taken its time. I am rooting for them. So yeah, I was rooting for our two characters to get together. Silas is a character, I hated him. I hated him. I hated him for his animal cruelty. But I feel like the character was very well written. I loved no, I didn't love him at all. I hated him and I hated the way he was, but I loved his chapters at the same time because I just found him interesting. Then there was another character called Albie. I loved him as well. His chapters were quite cute. He was a young boy. They were not cute. His sister was a prostitute. What am I talking about? But I feel like the story was so good. I enjoyed it. I was excited. I couldn't wait to see where it was going. By the end, I genuinely didn't know if we were going to have a happy ending, how things were going to turn out. I just loved it. I loved it so much, and I loved the romance. The romance didn't take over, but it was there and it was quite prominent, and I really liked the two characters, so I was happy for it to continue. I wasn't standing in their way. I loved all the characters. I loved and hated all the characters, I feel like I should say, because like I said, there's some really terrible characters, but I can't help but love them because I hate them, you know? So I gave it a 5 out of 5 because it was good and I really enjoyed it. But I definitely do warn you, if you're gonna read this book, be cautious. There is some like animal cruelty and that in it, so it's not very pleasant to read. Maybe skip over them if it bothers you that much, because it's not very nice. I do hate reading about like any kind of animal cruelty in books. It's sad to think that it does happen, and there are people out there who take joy out of killing creatures that are innocent and have done absolutely nothing to you. When it's in novels and when it's featured in novels a lot, I don't like it because I feel like it's not necessary to go into detail about animal deaths when it already is something that is so prominent. It's not very pleasant to read about it, so trigger warning. After that, I got on to my classic novels because I bought a few classic horror novels that I wanted to read over Halloween and see if I could get spooked, see if they were scary, see what I thought of them, because I've never really read any horror novels. I've never really read any of the classics, so I decided that this was the perfect time. And I kicked it off with Dracula by Bram Stoker because this was the book of the month for my Let's Get Classical book club that I'm part of. And this book actually, it's only about 300 and something pages long. I think it's 350. It's exactly 350. And it took me so long to get through this because I read The Alibi Girl quite quickly, and then I read The Doll Factory quite quickly as well, and then I started Dracula basically straight away, and I was so slow with this. Oh my god. Why? I'm so slow when it comes to reading classics. I don't know about anybody else. I can't read them at a fast pace because I really have to pay attention. Sometimes I genuinely think I'm just too thick to read these books because I have to reread parts. I struggle a lot of times maybe with just dialogue. I don't find them as interesting. I mean, they're nice to read because they're classics, they're years old. It's nice to see how like sort of like this genre started. These books were like pioneers for their genre. It's nice to read them, and I feel like people should read classics, but I also feel like if you read so much and you've read so many good books that are so well structured, everything's great, there's drama, there's high risk and everything, and then you read books like this and things move at a lot quicker pace, there's a lot more telling than showing, the conclusions are never all that dramatic, it's over basically straight away. I think that's just my main issue with classics. But Dracula started off great. I absolutely loved the first few chapters when Jonathan was at the Count's castle. That was the most exciting part of the book for me. It was so great. As the book continued, however, I just was less interested. There were so many characters, so many different points of view. We had diary entries, we had letters. We barely saw the Count anymore. Most of the book was just them talking about the Count, how they're going to find him. They found him. And that was it. That was really it. I did a review on this book. I will leave a link to that down below if you're interested in checking it out. The video was a little bit of a mess because I got onto a rant about it, and it probably made it sound like I hated the book when I really didn't hate it. I gave this 4 stars because I thought it was still good. It just wasn't what I was expecting, but it was still good. Oh, I never read the back to you. Do you need me to read the back to you? Do you know the story of Dracula? Dracula, 1897. Begins with a young solicitor, Jonathan Harker, on his way to Transylvania to meet Count Dracula, who is buying property in London. Harker endures a nightmarish stay at Dracula's castle, which foreshadows some bizarre events in England. First, a huge wolf-like creature is seen to leap from the deck of a Russian ship, which is run aground on the shores of Whitby, its captain dead at the helm and its crew mysteriously absent. And then Lucy, a friend of Harker's fiancée Mina, develops a strange wasting disease and red marks on her throat. Vampire expert Professor Van Helsing convinces Harker and his friends that if Mina is not to share the same fate as poor undead Lucy, Dracula must be caught and ritually killed. I do feel like the summary on the back really spoiled the majority of the book for me, because that final paragraph, that's literally what happens for about 3/4 of the book, and then the final part is just like the final showdown, which wasn't all that exciting, to be perfectly honest. But oh well. I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars because that intro was just the best. It gave me chills. Next up, after it took me weeks to finish Dracula, I moved on to Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, another short book. This is literally about 200 pages long, and it still took me 205 pages, and it still took me more than a week to read. And look at it! In an attempt to create a perfect new being, scientist Victor Frankenstein secretly assembles a collection of body parts. He did make it out of body parts!
What the fuck?
I did a review, sorry I'm interrupting, I did a review on this as well. I'll leave a link to that down below as well if you want to check it out. It's also a bit of a mess because I'm rambling so much. But I said about how in the book, Frankenstein doesn't actually tell the guy that he's telling the story to, who's kind of the main character, Robert I think his name is, he doesn't actually tell him how he made the monster because he doesn't want anybody to recreate his mistakes. He's so appalled by the monster he created, he doesn't want anyone else to do it, so he doesn't tell Robert how he created the monster. So I was left the whole time thinking, well, what did he make the monster out of? How was the monster made? And it said on the back of the book that he's made out of body parts. Where did he get the body part from? He never mentioned this in the book. Where did he get them? Was he robbing from graves? In an attempt to create a perfect new being, scientist Victor Frankenstein secretly assembles a collection of body parts and activates it with an electrical charge. He doesn't even say that in the book either because he doesn't tell them how he made the monster. I should have just read the back. The result is horrifying, even to his maker, and is never named. The hideous creature escapes the laboratory. He doesn't escape. Basically, Frankenstein just doesn't want to acknowledge that he exists. Frankenstein hides, and when he then goes back to his laboratory, he finds that the monster's left, and he's like, thank God for that. He's gone. Not my problem anymore. The hideous creature escapes the laboratory and searches in vain for friendship. All he wanted was a friend. Despairing, he returns to Frankenstein and demands a partner as his right to happiness. But when Victor destroys her before she is completed, the monster vows vengeance on everything he holds dear. Widely regarded as the first proper science fiction novel, Frankenstein provided the inspiration for a whole genre of horror stories and later films. While the back of the book was a lot more informative than the actual book itself. My issues with this book was that I think what it was that I had just seen so many different parodies and different sort of adaptations of this novel without actually watching any proper Frankenstein movies. Like, I think I'd just seen the character of the monster in so many things and it being told through like maybe different cartoons or different movies, so I had an image in my head of how the story went, but I didn't find the monster very monstrous. He really was just like a uneducated child at times. And then through other people, from watching other people, he learned how to speak English, he learned how to put words into a sentence, he learned like the ways of the law and everything. He became quite smart, and especially when he was having conversations with Frankenstein, it was so weird because it felt like it was two normal characters just conversing and not like this monster of a man. The book was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I gave it 5 stars because I did think it was quite good. It wasn't what I thought, and I was I mean, I was a little bit disappointed at times. I think it's just the fact that this story's just evolved so much with all its different adaptations. There's so much been added to it that's not in the original. It caught me unaware. I was a little bit surprised by it, but it was still pretty good, and I didn't find it all too complicated, and it was great. It was great. Moving on to the last book, which is another short one, which really I should have been able to read this a lot quicker than I did, because this took me a while, and I don't know why it took me for so long, because it is literally only about 100 pages. Is it even that? It's 200 and something. It's not. It's literally only 144 pages, and that was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Now, I knew absolutely nothing about this book going into it. I did not know the story. I only just realised that this is the novel that new Netflix show is loosely based on. Bly Manor? Yeah? Yeah, that new Netflix series is very loosely based on this book. And I say very loosely based because, honestly, there's really nothing in this. I've seen a few clips from the show. I haven't actually seen the show itself. And from what I saw, I was like, yep, that wasn't in the book. That wasn't in the book either. I knew absolutely nothing about this going into it, so I was ready to be scared. I was ready to be spooked. I was ready for ghosts to terrify me and haunt me. But oh boy, was I wrong. A young governess is employed to look after two enchantingly beautiful orphans. Striving to protect the children, she becomes obsessed with the idea that they are in danger, and her good intentions cause more harm than good. Uneasy and sinister, this novella shows a woman haunted by an eerie and evil presence that emerges from the terrors of real life. I was excited by that, and the first chapter had me quite excited, and then I started the book, and to be perfectly honest, I thought it was weak. It was weak. I didn't like it. I didn't like it, okay? This is a prime example of me just not getting into a book at all, and I'm really just glossing over the words on the page, so I wasn't taking any of it in. And by the end, it ended, and I was just left feeling like, what the actual hell just happened? What happened? Our character is seeing ghosts, I think. Yep. Our character sees a guy, and then she sees a woman, and somehow she just automatically knows that they're ghosts, which I suppose maybe if you see a ghost and it is some sort of like grey translucent person, you probably would know that they're not living. And then the fact that she's talking to, is it a housekeeper, the other woman, about it, and this woman just goes along with it even though she's never seen one of the ghosts herself, and the way they're talking, and she keeps talking about how she has to save the children, and I'm like,
From what?
save the kids from what? These ghosts? I'm like halfway into the book, and then I'm 3/4 of the way into the book, and I feel like nothing has really happened. I know it's a novella, it's a short story, and it was short. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, to be perfectly honest. I had no idea what was going on for most of the time, and why does the little boy, speak like a grown-ass man? They were having a conversation and he's calling her my dear and everything, and I'm like, what the fuck is this child? And then it ended, and I didn't get the ending. I get the whole idea is this governess actually seeing these spirits, or is it all in her head? And to be perfectly honest, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. And the way it ended, I have no idea what happened. Did the boy die? What happened? I honestly have no clue. I think I'm gonna have to reread this at some point in my life, maybe next Halloween, and really focus on every single word on that page, because I had not a clue what was going on, because I just couldn't get into it. I just couldn't. I think something like this could be done well. That's probably why they made it a Netflix show. Retelling it and just adding more detail to it. It needed more detail. It needed to be a bit longer. Then I would totally have been on board. I might have been a bit scared. I might have liked characters more. I had not a clue what was going on, and by the end I didn't care, and I only gave this 3 stars. So that's the lowest I think I've ever rated a classic, because usually I like classics. I usually find that even if they're not as exciting as I think they're going to be, there is some element to them that I really enjoy, whether it's just characters or because I just love the time period that they're set in. But with this book, I hated it. I should probably just read it again. I think I'm just not educated enough to read books like that. I'm not educated enough to read classics, because I never understand them. I don't understand what's going on. And if somebody with like an English degree went through it with a fine tooth comb and was able to explain the symbolism behind every single word, then yeah, maybe I might have liked it a bit better, but I didn't. So that was everything I read in the month of October. I only read 5 books, and that's because I ended up playing World of Warcraft. So I ended up not reading as much as I would have liked to, but oh well. I still read something at least. That's the main thing. I'm trying to read the books that I didn't quite get the chance to read at Halloween, and guess what? I'm being super slow with them as well. I have 2 collections of short stories and 1 novel, and I'm reading them at such a slow pace. I'm so slow when it comes to reading classics, but hopefully I'll get them done. Thank you for watching this horrible video of me just ranting. Did I enjoy any of these? I enjoyed the doll factor, and that was about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Goodbye!